Thousands have taken to the streets in recent months as the Trump administration's policy of separating children from their parents made headlines and sparked outrage. What's gotten less attention are the actions of previous administrations that critics say laid the groundwork for Trump's zero-tolerance immigration policies, or what communities are doing to oppose them. To discuss this, we sat down with Maru Villalpando of Northwest Detention Center Resistance in Tacoma, Washington, where hundreds have occupied the local ICE office and shut it down. She now says the Trump administration is retaliating against her, organizing work by ordering her deported.
Well, this is not a new issue. It has occurred for at least the past 15 years under the federal agency, Immigration Customs Enforcement, or as we call it, ICE. The separation of families is really the goal of ICE. When they started back in 2003, it was very clear that their only objective is to deport people. And when people talk about family separation, we say this has been happening before, not only to people with children, but everybody has a family in whatever shape or form that means. Where we also like to explain to people that just pay attention to this issue this year is that what's happening to children that come from other countries is two things. One, the structure that's being set up is not new. It has been tested with adults. It was implemented by the Bush administration, but really grew under the Obama administration. So it is an industry, it's a business, and therefore it will continue growing unless we decide to stop it. But not only the fact that we have Immigration Customs Enforcement taking this beyond what they already have done in the past, but really the Department of Justice has taken every tool on their toolbox to criminalize us further. The criminalization of parents crossing the border is not new. Sending people to pay a sentence of 2 years, sometimes as a minimum, to a federal prison because they crossed the border undocumented or they were deported and came back is not new. But what is new is now the addition of child detention centers. We used to have family detention centers under Obama. So yeah, we just want to make sure that people understand this is a larger fight. It's an infrastructure built under both Republican and Democrat administrations. And now it's not only that Trump is showing his true colors as he did back in the campaign, but it's also the fact that the people that he's putting in office, such as Jeff Sessions, that created the crisis that they don't want to solve.
So we're at the Fearless Cities conference, where it's bringing activists and organizers from around the world and North America to discuss successful models for organizing around these issues. What have you learned? What has your community learned? And talk about the successes you've had.
Well, what I just learned from meeting other women, especially from Mexico, is how Mexican women are fighting back and creating new structures, right? What is clear is that we all face a racial war. I mean, the fact what we see with the children is their children, there are brown children. This wouldn't happen to white children trying to come into the country. And they're very aware of that. Mexico is right now not only a place where people migrate towards the United States, but it's a place where people come through from other places. And so seeing how different women are building structures, are fighting not only the system, but really creating new things. And I'm really looking forward to hear from the compañera from Cherán, Michoacán, which is a small town where they're banned police, they're banned political parties since 2011, and right now the crime level is 0. So we are fighting.
Can you talk more about that? What happened, and how did that work? Yeah.
Well, the little I know about Cherán is that there's a law in the Mexican Constitution that for indigenous communities, they're allowed to set up their own structures, legal structures. And so the town of Cherán have been, like many other towns, ramped by the organized crime. And the organized crime is not only, the transportation of drugs or selling of drugs, it's really the government. And so they realized that the only way to fix the problems and to end with the assassinations of their own people in the area was to really get everybody out that was not from the community, that people that were part of the government, and it worked. They kicked everybody that it was representing the federal government. They kicked out everybody that was representing a political party. They kicked out the police. They developed their own local systems, ancestral systems of governance, of auto-governance. And so right now, actually, I was talking to the compañera from Cheran, and she was saying media was trying to go in and witness a hearing. And she said, we don't have hearings. And they wouldn't understand there's no hearings because there's hardly any crime. Most of the problems that arise are just really common problems, such as domestic disputes or assault in like the most lowest level. But there are things that are solved by the same communities at a local level, block by block. And I think that's an example that we want to take when we talk about abolishing ICE here in the United States. A lot of people still don't believe that can happen. A lot of people think that we need the police. And we work with several communities, Black communities, Native American communities, that are also looking at a state without police. And so I think that looking at those localities, those municipalities that have been able to end crime by banishing the police and the politicians, I think are a great example of really where the crime comes from. Not so much because people tend to be violent, but really it's how the state creates the circumstances for crime.
And you talked about your own status yesterday and your situation. People that I talk to, they ask, why don't there is an immigration system? Why don't you get in line like everyone else and just follow the laws? What do you say to people that say that?
There's a lot of people saying that.
Yeah.
I think that most people are really unaware of how the immigration system works. The immigration system is, even some people compare it to the IRS system, the taxing system that is very, very complicated. And the reality is that really under the Clinton administration, a Democratic administration, they shut down every door for people like me to legalize. But back in the day with Reagan, he criminalized us for not having a social security number, for working without a paper. So it's, again, how the U.S. government has created a system of criminalizing poor people, immigrants of color, and really stopping us from accessing the paper. I mean, it's really funny how the government is angry at us for not having a paper, but they don't want to give us the paper. So the solution is not on us. If there was a door that I can just line outside and wait for the paper, I would have done it. 11 million of us would have done it already. That's not the thing. The problem is that the government wants to control our population, as the government has controlled Black people and Native people through prisons. Now they're controlling us through a detention and deportation machine that ends up being a business. So it helps private prisons. In this case, where I live, Geo Group, the owner of the Northwest Detention Center, it benefits them. There are people like me without papers because they guarantee that they will have clients forever.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.